How does a simple confession about sharing a bed with my best friend turn into the moment my husband serves me divorce papers, right in front of my new boss? What started as a harmless white lie became the last straw that broke us apart, and now everyone's asking, was I really left with no choice, or did I choose this ending myself? The apartment felt suffocating as I stood in our living room, watching Jonas methodically fold Eva's laundry. His movements were precise, mechanical, like everything else he'd been doing since I walked through the door an hour ago. The silence between us stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap. "You're being ridiculous," I finally said, breaking the tension. "I already explained what happened." Jonas didn't look up from Eva's tiny pink sweater. "You explained that you had no choice but to share a bed with Mira. I'm trying to understand how that works." I rolled my eyes, feeling the familiar frustration bubble up. "The couch was broken, Jonas. The springs were poking through. What was I supposed to do, sleep on the floor? You were supposed to come home." His voice was quiet, controlled. "To your husband, to your daughter. Eva was at your mother's for the sleepover, and you were already asleep when I called." I moved closer, trying to catch his eye. "Look, I know it sounds weird, but Mira needed me. She was having that panic about the promotion interview, and Zephyra." Jonas finally looked at me, and something in his expression made me step back. "You've been needed by Mira a lot lately." "She's my best friend. That's what friends do for each other." I crossed my arms, feeling defensive. "Maybe if you showed half as much interest in my emotional needs as she does, I wouldn't have to..." "Wouldn't have to what?" Jonas set down the sweater. "Sleep in another woman's bed." The way he said it made it sound dirty, wrong. "It wasn't like that, and you know it. God, Jonas, sometimes I think you want to find problems where there aren't any." From down the hall, I heard Eva's bedroom door creak. She'd been home for an hour, but had disappeared into her room the moment she sensed the tension between us. Smart kid. "Mummy?" Eva's small voice drifted from the hallway. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" I forced a bright smile. "No, sweetheart, we're just talking. Go back to your room, okay?" But Eva lingered in the doorway, her 8-year-old eyes taking in everything. The distance between Jonas and me, the way we weren't touching, the careful politeness that had replaced our usual easy banter. Jonas walked over and knelt down to Eva's level. "Hey, princess. Everything's fine. Mom and I are just working through some grown-up stuff." "Like when Aunt Mira comes over and you get that face?" Eva asked innocently. My stomach dropped. "What face, honey?" "The face Daddy makes when he's trying not to be mad." Eva looked between us. "Like now." Jonas's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Eva, why don't you go draw me a picture? I'll come tuck you in soon." After Eva disappeared back into her room, the silence returned, heavier than before. "She notices everything," Jonas said quietly. "Kids are resilient. She's fine." I waved dismissively. "You're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be." "Am I?" Jonas pulled out his phone. "Show me your messages with Mira from last night." The request hit me like a slap. "Excuse me?" "Your phone, the messages between you and Mira. If this was just about a broken couch and emotional support, show me." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "I'm not showing you my private conversations. That's an invasion of privacy, Jonas. I can't believe you'd even ask." "Private conversations." He repeated the word slowly. "With the woman you shared a bed with." "You're being paranoid and controlling." I grabbed my purse from the counter. "I don't have to justify my friendships to you." "Where are you going?" "Out. I need air. I need to think." I headed for the door. "Maybe when I come back, you'll have remembered that you're supposed to trust your wife." As I reached for the doorknob, Jonas spoke again. "Zephyra." Something in his tone made me pause. "I do trust my wife. The question is whether my wife is the woman standing in front of me right now." I left without another word, but his voice followed me down the hallway, along with the sound of Eva asking him why Mommy looked upset. The next morning at the office, I felt like I could finally breathe again. The tech firm's open-plan workspace buzzed with its usual energy, and I threw myself into my role as operations manager with renewed focus. This was my domain, where people respected my opinions and valued my contributions. "Rough night?" asked Kelly from accounting, noticing the concealer I'd applied heavily under my eyes. "Just some drama at home. Nothing I can't handle." I straightened my blazer and checked my reflection in my monitor. "Men, you know." Kelly laughed knowingly. "Tell me about it. My husband got bent out of shape last week because I went out for drinks with my college roommate, like we can't have lives outside of them." The validation felt good. See, other women understood. Jonas was being unreasonable. My phone buzzed with a text from Mira. "Hope you're okay after last night. Your husband seemed pretty wound up. Coffee later." I quickly typed back, "He'll get over it. Yes to coffee. Need normal human interaction." "Zephyra?" Trent Hall's voice made me look up. My boss stood by my desk, his expression unreadable. "Could I see you in my office for a moment?" My stomach clenched, but I followed him to his corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown. "Close the door," Trent said, settling behind his desk. I sat across from him, trying to read his mood. "Is this about the Morrison account? Because I have those projections ready." "It's about the conversation I overheard in the break room this morning." Trent leaned back in his chair. "Something about you spending the night at a friend's house." Heat flooded my face. "I'm sorry, what does my personal life have to do with—" "Nothing usually, but when it becomes office gossip, it becomes my concern." Trent's tone was professional but firm. "Perception matters in this business, Zephyra, especially for someone in your position." "Perception of what? Having friends? Supporting other women?" I felt my voice rising and forced it down. "I'm sorry, but I don't see how having a sleepover with my best friend reflects poorly on my professional capabilities." "A sleepover." Trent repeated the word flatly. "You're 34 years old, Zephyra. Married. With a child." The judgment in his voice stung. "So married women can't have close friendships? That's pretty archaic thinking for a progressive company." Trent sighed. "Look, I'm not trying to police your personal life, but I'm telling you that people are talking, and in a company this size, talk travels fast." "Let them talk. I have nothing to hide." The words came out more defensively than I'd intended. "Good. Then we shouldn't have any problems." Trent opened a file on his desk, effectively dismissing me. "Just be mindful of how things look." Back at my desk, I was fuming. The double standard was infuriating. If Jonas had spent the night at a male friend's house, no one would bat an eye. But because I was a woman, because Mira was attractive and single, suddenly everyone had opinions. I opened my laptop and navigated to social media. If people wanted to talk, I'd give them something real to discuss. "Grateful for the women in my life who show up when it matters," I typed. "Real friendship means being there through thick and thin, even when others don't understand. Women supporting women isn't just a hashtag, it's a way of life. Sisterhood over everything, danj authentic friendship, anja women supporting women." I attached a photo from last month, Mira and me laughing over cocktails at her favorite rooftop bar. We looked happy, carefree, the kind of friendship people envied. The likes and supportive comments started rolling in immediately. "You two are friendship goals. Love seeing real sisterhood. Some people are just jealous of genuine connections." My mother was one of the first to comment. "So proud of my daughter for maintaining her independence and close friendships. A real woman knows her worth and doesn't compromise her relationships for anyone." The validation felt intoxicating. See? This was what real support looked like, not Jonas's suspicious questions and cold shoulders. My phone buzzed with a text from Greg, Jonas's older brother. "Hey Zeph, heard through the grapevine that you and Jonas are having some issues. Just wanted to say that family stuff should probably stay private. Hope you guys work it out." I stared at the message, anger building. The grapevine. meaning Jonas had been talking to his family about our private business, and now Greg was lecturing me about keeping things private while simultaneously proving that Jonas had already aired our dirty laundry. I screenshotted Greg's text and sent it to Mira with the message, "Look at this. His family is already taking sides and lecturing me. But somehow I'm the problem for having supportive friends." Mira's response was immediate. "Ugh, typical. They're circling the wagons. Good thing you have people who actually care about your feelings." The rest of the day passed in a blur of righteous indignation and mounting support from my social media post. By the time I got home, I felt armored in validation. Jonas was in the kitchen making dinner, his movements still carrying that careful precision that had become his default around me. Ava was at the table doing homework, occasionally glancing between us with those two perceptive eyes. "How was work?" Jonas asked without looking up from the stove. "Fine. Productive." I kissed Eva's forehead and sat down across from her. "How was school, baby?" "Good. We learned about families and social studies." Eva looked up from her math worksheet. "Mrs. Peterson said families come in all different shapes, and sometimes people live in different houses but still love each other." The innocent comment hit like a punch to the gut. I glanced at Jonas, but his expression remained neutral. That's nice, sweetheart, but our family all lives in the same house." I forced a smile. "We're not going anywhere." "But Daddy's been sleeping on the couch," Eva said matter-of-factly. "And you've been staying at Aunt Mira's sometimes. Mrs. Peterson said that's called separated." "Eva." Jonas's voice was gentle but firm. "Finish your homework. Dinner will be ready soon." After Eva went to wash her hands, Jonas finally looked at me directly. "She's scared, Zephyra. Can't you see that?" "She's fine. Kids adapt. You're the one making this weird and tense." I grabbed plates from the cabinet. "Maybe if you stopped acting like I committed some crime, things could go back to normal." "Normal," Jonas tested the word. "Is normal you posting about your sleepover on social media for the whole world to see?" So he'd seen the post. Good. Maybe he'd see how many people supported me. I posted about friendship and support. If you have a problem with that, maybe you should ask yourself why. I saw your mother's comment too, about not compromising relationships for anyone. Jonas turned off the burner and faced me fully. "Is that what I am to you now? Someone asking you to compromise?" "You're asking me to justify my friendships, to show you private messages, to basically cut ties with someone who's been there for me longer than—" I caught myself before finishing that sentence. Longer than what? Longer than me? Jonas's voice was quiet, but there was something dangerous underneath. Longer than our marriage? "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it?" We stared at each other across the kitchen, and for a moment I saw something flicker in Jonas's eyes. Not anger, not hurt. Something colder, more final. Then Eva bounced back into the kitchen, and the moment passed. But as we sat down to dinner, Eva chattering about her day, Jonas responding with careful attention, me picking at my food, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. When I checked my phone later, I had 17 missed calls from Jonas's mother and a text that simply read, "We need to talk." I didn't return Lena's calls. Whatever Jonas's mother wanted to discuss, I wasn't in the mood for another lecture about marriage and responsibility. Instead, I texted Mira, "Need to get out of this house. Can I come over?" Her response was immediate. "Always. I'll order Thai food and open wine." Jonas was in his study when I grabbed my overnight bag. I knocked on the door frame, and he looked up from a stack of papers spread across his desk. "Going somewhere?" His tone was neutral, but I caught him glancing at the bag. "Mira's. Just for tonight. I need some space to think." I shifted the bag on my shoulder. "Eva's already asleep. I kissed her goodnight." "Of course you did." Jonas turned back to his papers. "Have a good evening, Zephyra." The dismissal stung more than I expected. No argument, no plea for me to stay. Just acceptance. Mira's condo was a sanctuary of modern minimalism and expensive candles. She greeted me at the door with a glass of wine and a knowing smile. "Rough day in paradise?" she asked, leading me to her oversized sectional. "He's being impossible, suspicious, controlling, cold." I sank into the plush cushions and took a long sip of wine. "I don't know what's happened to him. Maybe he's finally showing his true colors." Mira curled up beside me, closer than necessary. "Some men can't handle strong, independent women. They want us to be grateful little housewives who never have needs of our own." That's exactly it. The validation felt like a warm blanket. He used to love that I was social, that I had close friendships. Now suddenly it's a problem. Because he's threatened. You're growing, evolving, and he's still the same boring high school teacher he's always been. Mira's hand found mine. "You deserve someone who celebrates your friendships, not someone who tries to control them." We talked until after midnight, Mira listening with the kind of attention Jonas used to give me. When she suggested I stay in the guest room, I almost said yes. Almost. "I should probably go home," I said reluctantly. "Or," Mira's voice was soft, "you could stay, like last time. We're both adults, Zeph. We can comfort each other without it meaning anything dramatic." The way she said my name, the warmth in her voice, the complete absence of judgment or suspicion, it was everything I wasn't getting at home. "Okay," I heard myself say, "just for tonight." The next evening was the monthly family dinner at Greg and his wife Sarah's house. I'd been dreading it all day, but Jonas insisted we maintain normal appearances for Eva's sake. The tension was immediate. Lena barely made eye contact with me, focusing all her attention on Eva. Greg's usual joking demeanor was replaced by polite distance. Even Sarah, who'd always been friendly, seemed to be choosing her words carefully. "So, Zephyra," Greg said over dinner, "Jonas mentioned you've been spending a lot of time with your friend lately." "Mira, and yes, we've been supporting each other through some challenging times." I kept my voice level, pleasant. "It's nice to have friends who understand you." "Understanding is important," Lena said quietly, "in all relationships." The implication hung in the air like smoke. "Mom," Jonas warned. "No, it's fine," I said, setting down my fork. "If you have something to say, Lena, just say it." Lena looked at Eva, who was focused on her mashed potatoes, then back at me. "I just think that when you're married, especially with a child, your family should come first, before friends, before other needs." "Other needs?" I felt my temperature rising. "What exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm saying that Eva has been asking me why Mommy doesn't sleep at home anymore. And that breaks my heart." "Ava is fine. She's adaptable, resilient." "She's 8 years old," Greg interrupted, "and she's scared. She asked Sarah yesterday if divorce means kids have to pick which parent they love more." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Eva, who was now staring at her plate, her small shoulders tense. "Eva, honey." "I don't want you and Daddy to get divorced," Eva said in a small voice. "I want our family to stay together." "We are together, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy are just working through some grown-up problems." "But you don't sleep in the same bed anymore, and you're always angry at each other, and Daddy looks sad all the time." Eva's eyes filled with tears. "Did I do something wrong?" "Oh, baby, no." I reached for her, but she pulled back slightly. "Then why is everything different?" I looked around the table at Jonas's family. Lena with her disappointed expression, Greg with his barely contained anger, Sarah looking uncomfortable, Jonas himself staring at his plate. "Maybe," I said carefully, "some people need to learn that marriage is about supporting each other's friendships and personal growth, not trying to control every relationship." The silence that followed was deafening. "Personal growth," Greg repeated slowly. "Is that what we're calling it?" "Greg." Jonas's voice carried a warning. "No, Jonas. I'm tired of tiptoeing around this." Greg turned to face me fully. "You're having an affair, Zephyra. We all know it. The question is whether you're going to keep pretending otherwise or actually deal with the damage you're doing to your family. I am not having an affair, the words exploded out of me. I'm maintaining a close friendship with someone who actually supports me, unlike this family of judges and critics. A close friendship that involves sleeping in her bed and posting about it on social media like you're proud of it. Greg's voice was rising. A friendship that's more important than your husband's feelings or your daughter's security. Greg, please, Sarah murmured, glancing at Eva. But Greg wasn't finished. You know what, Zephyra? If you want to blow up your marriage for whatever this is with Mira, that's your choice. But don't pretend you're the victim here. Don't pretend Jonas is being unreasonable for wanting his wife to act like she's actually married. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. Actually, you do, Greg said, because that little girl is watching everything you do, and she's going to remember this for the rest of her life. So maybe, for once, think about someone other than yourself. I grabbed my purse, my hands shaking with rage. Jonas, we're leaving, now. But when I turned around, Jonas was still seated. He was looking at Eva, who had tears streaming down her face. You go ahead, he said quietly. Eva and I will stay for dessert. The betrayal was complete. His family had ambushed me, and he was choosing their side. Fine, I managed. Enjoy your family meeting. I drove to Mira's in a fury, my phone buzzing with texts I ignored. When she opened the door and saw my face, she immediately pulled me into her arms. They're horrible, I sobbed into her shoulder. His whole family. They ambushed me, made me look like the villain in front of Eva. Shh, Mira murmured, stroking my hair. They're just protecting their precious Jonas. They can't stand that you have someone who actually appreciates you. Later, as we sat on her couch sharing a bottle of wine, my phone lit up with a text from Jonas. Eva drew a picture tonight. She drew our family, but you're barely visible in the corner. She said she couldn't remember what color your hair was because you're never home. We need to talk tomorrow. I showed the text to Mira, who rolled her eyes. Emotional manipulation, classic. He's using Eva to guilt you into submission. Right? I felt the familiar surge of validation. He's the one making this hard on her with his cold treatment and family interference. But even as I agreed with Mira, even as she held me and told me I deserved better, I couldn't get the image out of my head. Eva's tear-stained face asking if she'd done something wrong. When Mira suggested I stay the night again, I didn't hesitate. Let Jonas deal with his judgmental family. Let them all see how it felt when I wasn't there to be their convenient target. What I didn't know was that Jonas had already made his own decision about how to deal with the situation. I came home the next morning to find Jonas in the kitchen, methodically organizing papers into manila folders. His laptop was open, displaying what looked like a spreadsheet, but he closed it when I walked in. Eva's at school, he said without looking up. I made her lunch and signed her permission slip for the field trip. Thank you. I poured myself coffee from the pot he'd made, noting that he'd only made enough for 1 cup. We need to talk about last night. Do we? Jonas continued sorting papers. I think your brother-in-law said everything that needed to be said. Your brother was out of line, attacking me in front of Eva, making accusations. Were they accusations, Zephyra, or observations? I set down my mug harder than necessary. I'm not having an affair, Jonas. I'm tired of saying it. Okay. His calm acceptance threw me off balance. Okay? That's it. What do you want me to say? You've made your position clear. You're not having an affair. You're just maintaining a close friendship that requires you to spend nights in another woman's bed while posting about it on social media and prioritizing her emotional needs over your family's concerns. Jonas finally looked at me. Did I miss anything? The way he laid it out made it sound different, worse than it was. You're twisting everything to fit your narrative, I said. Mira is my friend. She's been there for me through everything. My job stress, my mother's health scare last year, the fertility struggles we had before Eva. Where were you during those times? I was here, working 2 jobs to pay for the fertility treatments, taking care of you when you were too depressed to get out of bed, holding you when you cried. His voice remained steady, but something flickered in his eyes. But I guess that doesn't count as being there. That's not what I meant, isn't it? Jonas closed the folder he'd been working on and labeled it with a date. You've rewritten our entire history to justify what you're doing now. In your version, I'm the neglectful husband who drove you into the arms of your supportive friend. It's a compelling narrative. I stared at him, unnerved by his calm demeanor. This wasn't the Jonas I knew, the one who wore his emotions openly, who fought passionately when he cared about something. Why are you being so cold about this? Cold? Jonas considered the word. Maybe I'm just tired, Zephyra. Tired of fighting for someone who doesn't want to be fought for. That's not true. Show me your phone. The request came out of nowhere, delivered in the same calm tone. What? Your phone. Show me the messages between you and Mira. All of them. If this is just friendship, if I'm just being paranoid and controlling, prove it. My hand instinctively moved to my purse where my phone was charging. I already told you that's an invasion of privacy. Privacy? Jonas nodded slowly. Right. The privacy you need to maintain your innocent friendship. Yes. The same privacy that doesn't extend to posting about your sleepovers on social media for hundreds of people to see. I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it. The logic was uncomfortable. That's different, I said finally. How? Because those posts were about supporting women and friendship. The private messages are personal. Personal how? Each question felt like a trap, but I couldn't pinpoint why. Personal like the way friends talk to each other. Inside jokes, complaints about work, emotional support stuff. Emotional support about what? About, I gestured vaguely. Life, stress, marriage problems. So you discuss our marriage problems with Mira, but showing me those discussions would be an invasion of privacy. The way he put it made me sound hypocritical, but that wasn't fair. She's my friend, Jonas. I need someone to talk to. You have me. Do I? Because lately, talking to you feels like being cross-examined by a lawyer. Jonas smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Interesting comparison. Something in his tone sent a chill down my spine, but before I could analyze it further, my phone rang. Mira's name flashed on the screen. I glanced at Jonas, who was watching me with that same unreadable expression. I should take this, I said. Of course you should. I answered the call in our bedroom, closing the door behind me. Hey, babe. Mira's voice was warm, familiar. How did it go with the husband this morning? Weird. He's being really calm about everything. Almost resigned. Maybe he's finally accepting that you're not going to be controlled. Maybe. I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed I hadn't slept in for 3 nights. He asked to see our text messages again. And you said no, obviously. Obviously, but the way he asked, I don't know, something felt different. Different how? I tried to put my finger on it. Like he was building a case instead of trying to save our marriage. Mira was quiet for a moment. Zeph, you don't think he would actually... I mean, he's not the type to do anything drastic, right? What do you mean? Like divorce, or trying to take Eva away from you. The suggestion hit me like ice water. He wouldn't. Jonas isn't vindictive like that. I hope you're right, but maybe we should be more careful for a while. You know, until things settle down. Careful how? Maybe don't stay over for a few nights. Keep our texting light and friendly. Just until his family stops stirring up drama. The suggestion should have made sense, but instead, it felt like abandonment. So I should let them win. Let them control my friendships through intimidation. It's not about winning, babe. It's about protecting what we have. What we have. The phrase echoed in my head long after we hung up. When I came back to the kitchen, Jonas was gone. The folders were stacked neatly on the counter, each one labeled with dates going back 6 months. A sticky note on top read, Archive A, complete. I stared at the note, my heart rate picking up. Archive A? What was Archive B? And why did my husband suddenly sound like he was running a legal investigation? My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Saw your post about friendship yesterday. So proud of you for standing your ground. Some people just can't handle strong women. Don't let anyone dim your light, sweetheart. Then another text, this one from Eva's school. Reminder, parent-teacher conferences next week. Please confirm your attendance. And finally, one from Jonas. Picked up Eva early. Taking her to Mum's for dinner. Don't wait up. I stood alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the detritus of our dissolving marriage, and for the first time since this all started, I felt truly afraid. Not of Jonas. He wasn't a violent man, wasn't cruel or vindictive. I was afraid of the calm certainty in his voice when he'd asked to see my phone, the methodical way he'd organized those folders, the resignation in his eyes when he'd stopped fighting for us. I was afraid that while I'd been fighting for my right to maintain my friendship with Mira, Jonas had stopped fighting for our marriage altogether. And I was afraid that by the time I figured out what Archive A contained, it would be too late to care. The investor event was supposed to be my moment to shine. Our firm was courting a major client, and as operations manager, I'd been chosen to give a presentation on our efficiency metrics. It was the kind of opportunity that could define my career trajectory. I'd invited Jonas as my +1 weeks ago, back when we were still pretending everything was fine. To my surprise, he'd accepted. You sure you want to come? I asked, as I applied my lipstick in our bedroom mirror. It's going to be pretty boring corporate stuff. I want to support you, Jonas said from where he sat on the edge of our bed, adjusting his tie. It's important to you, so it's important to me. The words should have warmed me, but something in his tone felt off. Too formal, like he was reading from a script. Okay. Well, Mira will be there too. I put her down as my second guest. I watched his reflection in the mirror. I hope that's not going to be a problem. Why would it be a problem? She's your friend. Again, that strange, calm acceptance. No tension, no argument, no sign of the man who'd been demanding to see my text messages just days ago. The event was held at the downtown Marriott, in their largest ballroom. The company had spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers, open bar, past hors d'oeuvres, and a jazz trio playing softly in the corner. I felt confident in my navy dress and heels, ready to impress both the potential clients and my colleagues. Mira arrived looking stunning in a red cocktail dress that hugged her curves perfectly. She kissed my cheek in greeting, her hand lingering on my arm. You look amazing, she murmured. Ready to knock them dead? Always. I felt the familiar boost of confidence that came from Mira's attention. Come on, let me introduce you to some people. Jonas appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of wine. Ladies. Jonas, so good to see you. Mira's smile was bright, innocent. Thanks for sharing your wife with me so much lately. She's been such a lifesaver. Has she? Jonas handed me a glass, his expression pleasant. That's what she's good at, saving people. Something in his tone made me glance at him sharply, but his face revealed nothing. The evening progressed smoothly. My presentation went well, earning approving nods from the potential investors and praise from Trent. I felt vindicated, powerful. This was who I really was, a successful professional, not just someone's wife or mother. At the cocktail reception afterward, Mira and I worked the room together. She had a natural charisma that complemented my professional expertise, and I noticed people gravitating toward our energy. Your friend is quite charming, commented Patricia Wells, one of the investors. You two have wonderful chemistry. We've been best friends for years, I said, accepting the compliment. She really gets me, you know. It's rare to find someone who understands you so completely. Indeed, My partner and I have been together for 12 years, and I know exactly what you mean about that deep connection. It took me a moment to realize Patricia had misunderstood our relationship, and by then, she'd moved on to speak with someone else. I glanced around to see if anyone else had overheard, and caught sight of Jonas across the room. He was watching me with that same unreadable expression. "Everything okay?" Mira appeared at my side with fresh drinks. "Fine, just... some people are getting the wrong idea about us." Mira laughed. "Let them. We know what we are to each other. That's all that matters." As the evening wore on, I found myself relaxing into the admiration and attention. Colleagues complimented my presentation, investors expressed interest in working with our firm, and Mira provided a constant stream of validation and support. "You were brilliant up there," she said during a quiet moment. "Confident, articulate, powerful. This is the real you." "It feels good to be appreciated," I admitted, glancing over at Jonas, who was making polite conversation with Trent near the bar. "You deserve to be appreciated every day, not just at work events." Mira's voice was soft, intimate. "Some people are just too limited to recognize what they have." When it came time for my closing remarks, I felt buoyed by wine and success. I took the microphone with confidence. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," I began. "This industry is built on relationships. Professional relationships, certainly, but also personal ones. The people who support us, who believe in us, who show up for us when it matters." I found Mira in the crowd and smiled. "I'm grateful to work for a company that values the whole person, not just the employee. That understands we're all complex individuals with rich personal lives and meaningful relationships outside these walls." The applause was warm, appreciative. I felt like I was floating as I stepped down from the small stage. "Lovely speech," said James Morrison, the primary investor we were courting. "It's clear you have a strong support system." "I do. I'm very lucky." "Your husband seems like a solid man, very attentive to you and your friend throughout the evening." I followed his gaze to where Jonas stood near the exit, checking his phone. "Yes, he's supportive." "That's wonderful. Family stability is so important in business partnerships. We like to work with people who have their personal lives in order." The comment struck me as odd, but before I could respond, Mira appeared with my purse. "Ready to go, superstar. I think you've conquered enough hearts for one evening." As we made our way toward the exit, I noticed Jonas falling into step beside us. "Great event," he said conversationally. "Very illuminating." "Thanks for coming," I said, still riding the high of the evening's success. "I know corporate events aren't really your thing." "Actually, I found it quite educational. Amazing what you can learn about people when you watch them in their element." Something in his tone made me look at him more closely, but we'd reached the valet station and Mira was pulling me aside. "I'm so proud of you tonight," she said, squeezing my hands. "You were absolutely radiant. This is who you're meant to be." "Thank you, for everything, for being here, for supporting me, for—" I trailed off, suddenly aware that Jonas was standing close enough to hear every word. "For being your friend," Mira finished smoothly. "That's what friends do." As we waited for our cars, my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it absently, expecting a congratulatory message from a colleague. Instead, it was from Jonas, even though he was standing right next to me. "We need to talk tomorrow. It's important." I looked up at him, confused. "Why are you texting me?" "Because I wanted to make sure you saw it," he said calmly, "and because I wanted there to be a record." "A record of what?" "Of me trying to communicate with my wife." The valet brought my car around, and I got in with a growing sense of unease. Jonas's behavior tonight had been strange, too polite, too observant, too documented. As I drove home, replaying the evening's events, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been performing in a play without knowing it, and that Jonas had been in the audience, taking notes. When I got home, he was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and a manila folder I didn't recognize. Good evening, he said pleasantly. How do you feel the event went? Good, really good. The investors seemed impressed. Trent was pleased with my presentation and I stopped. Why do you sound like you're interviewing me? Just interested in your perspective. It's been enlightening to observe you and Mira together in a professional setting. Observe us? The way you interact, the way you present your relationship to others, the way you talk about what you mean to each other. Jonas opened the folder and pulled out a small notebook. Very educational. My blood ran cold. Were you taking notes? At my work event? Just observations. For instance, did you know that Patricia Wells thinks you and Mira are a couple? She mentioned to her assistant that it was refreshing to see such an openly affectionate partnership in a corporate setting. That's a misunderstanding. I can't control what people assume. Of course not, but you can control how you respond to those assumptions, and you chose not to correct her. I stared at him, my successful evening crumbling around me. You've been watching us, documenting us, like we're some kind of experiment. Like you're my wife, Jonas corrected gently. And I wanted to understand what I was dealing with. Dealing with? Jonas closed the notebook and stood up. Zephyra, tomorrow we're going to have a conversation about the future of our marriage. I suggest you think carefully tonight about what you want that future to look like. He walked past me toward the stairs, then paused. Oh, and you might want to check your phone. I think you have some messages waiting. As his footsteps faded up the stairs, I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. 7 missed calls from Trent, 3 from my mother, and a text from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Vellum, this is Janet Pierce from Morrison and Associates. Could you please call me first thing Monday morning? We need to discuss some concerns that have arisen regarding tonight's event. I sank into a kitchen chair, my beautiful evening turning to ash in my mouth. Whatever Jonas had planned for tomorrow, I had the sinking feeling that I wasn't going to like it. I barely slept that night, my mind racing through possible explanations for the investor's cryptic message. When I came downstairs the next morning, Jonas was already dressed in his best suit, sitting at the kitchen table with Eva. Daddy looks fancy, Eva observed, cutting her pancakes into careful squares. Are you going somewhere important? Very important, Princess. But first, I'm going to take you to Grandma Lena's house for a special day together. What about Mummy? Eva looked between us. Is she coming too? Mummy has some things to take care of today, Jonas said gently, but we'll see her later. Something in his tone made my stomach clench. Jonas, what's going on? Finish your breakfast, Eva. We need to leave soon. He didn't answer my question. After Eva ran upstairs to brush her teeth, I confronted him. Why are you dressed like you're going to court? And why are you taking Eva to your mother's? Because I am going to court. Well, to a lawyer's office first, then to court. Jonas's voice was calm, matter of fact. And because Eva shouldn't be here for what happens next. The words hit me like a physical blow. A lawyer? Jonas, what are you talking about? I'm talking about divorce, Zephyra, and custody arrangements, and division of assets. He picked up a manila envelope from the counter. I'm talking about the end of our marriage. You can't be serious. Over this, over Mira, over the fact that you're having an affair and lying about it, over the fact that you've chosen another person over your family, over the fact that our daughter is terrified her parents are going to split up, and you're too busy playing house with your girlfriend to notice. She's not my girlfriend. The words exploded out of me. We're friends, close friends. Why can't you understand that? Jonas pulled out his phone and opened a folder I'd never seen before. These are screenshots of your text messages with Mira. The ones you said were private. My blood froze. How did you... Cloud backup. Family account. I'm the primary holder. He scrolled through messages. Want me to read where you call me boring, Jonas? Where she says she'd take care of you and Eva? Where you say, I'm already in too deep? Friends complain about spouses sometimes. You're discussing leaving me with her. planning Eva's future with her. I had no defense. He was right. "Eva, time for grandma's," Jonas called. "We can go to counseling. We could have 6 months ago, but you chose secrecy. You chose her." Later, my boss called. The Morrison Group withdrew, citing concerns about my professional conduct after last night's event. At the office, HR showed me evidence: social media posts, witness testimony, my own words used against me. A courier interrupted. "You've been served. Divorce papers, custody order, screenshots of everything." Jonas's note: "You said I never listened. I was listening to everything." I walked out with my belongings and divorce papers. Lost my job, husband, reputation in 2 hours. I'd had choices every step. I'd chosen this.